And Woj, you reported that Joe Mazzulla will be the interim head coach here. You can see his resume on your screen. He's been a Celtics assistant coach the last 3 seasons after spending the previous 3 seasons at Fairmount State. And he played for West Virginia between 2006 and 2011, and now could become the NBA's youngest head coach at 34 years old. And we'd be remiss not to also mention that Mazzulla was arrested twice at West Virginia, once in 2008 for underage drinking and aggravated assault. He pled guilty, paid a fine, and then again in 2009 for domestic battery after an incident at Morgantown Bar. The domestic battery case never went to trial. It was settled in August of 2009. He paid a $100 fine and court costs, plus had to do 40 hours of community service. Now, that was 13 years ago. He settled and paid both fines. So, Woj, why are the Celtics choosing him as their next head coach?
Well, let's start with this. This is somebody whose character they really believe in, whose leadership they really believe in, and tactically, they think this is Joe Mazzulla has all the makings of a head coach in the NBA.
Hey, what's up, guys? This is elospeaks back again with another video. And in this video topic, I want to be addressing the Malika Andrew topic as of late. So she's been in the news recently for some of her obnoxious takes and opinions of what's going on. Now, as you've seen all over social media, you've seen her back and forth with certain athletes and sports personality in the media, such as Kendrick Perkins, Stephen A. Smith, and etc. But one of the recent videos that she had on the NBA Today, where the whole Boston Celtics Ime Udoka situation that's going on, she recently gave her 2 cents on the opinion, because as of right now, we all know that Ime Udoka is suspended from the Boston Celtics for a whole full season. So as of doing that, the Boston Celtics has a new interim head coach at the moment, who was the assistant head coach named Joe Mazzulla. Now, it's important to note Joe Mazzulla as the interim head coach, and he's going to be moving forward because of the whole situation of Ime Udoka having intimate relationships with one of the staff members on the Boston Celtics team. So as of late, we had no problem with that. So another situation that resolved around that was Malika Andrew on NBA Today announcing that the Boston Celtics will be having a new interim head coach, which was no problem. But my issue was when she blasted his past legal issues that he handled 13 years ago prior about the situation, and brought it to the forefront as he was announced that he's going to be the new interim head coach for the time being. Now, I feel like that was unfair, I feel like that was unnecessary, and I feel like that was uncalled for and disgusting. Just to give you my personal opinion, I'm pretty sure you watched the video that I played at the beginning, so I'm just going to be giving my thoughts and opinions on the matter as regards to that situation. But just seeing that overall was unnecessary on Malika's Andrew part, and this is why she's getting a lot of backfire from a lot of sports fans and people in the media as well, because of her randomly bringing up the head coach past issues that he's already had situated. It would have been one thing if he was currently going through these situations right now, then it would have been an issue to talk about it. But the fact that you brung up the past issues, then I feel like that's what's unnecessary, and that's the issues that people are having with her as regards to her, to be honest, feminist ideology and rhetoric in terms of how she covered certain athletes. And I'm going to be making a video about how all these stories that's coming out with the SARS, Brett Favre, Ime Udoka, and how nobody's really giving this as much coverage as they should, which is unfair, but I digress. This is just the way it is, unfortunately. Now, as you see from the video, as you see from the audio, she randomly brung up his past charges. Now I want to go all over his past charges just to debrief you right quick so you could be up to date what's going on if you didn't know. So as we know, after the suspension of Ime Udoka of the 2022-2023 season for violating team policies, the Boston Celtics were looking for a new head coach. Brad Stevens said last week that the logistical replacement for Udoka was the Boston assistant, Joe Mazzulla. So now, as we know, Joe Mazzulla is to take over the head coaching job, even though he has no coaching experiences in the NBA, but he's been with Brad Stevenson since 2019. So that if they knew that prior, they would have never assigned him. Obviously, people have a past. I'm not condoning what he did. I'm not saying what he did was right or wrong, but he moved past it. So the charges that Mazzulla had 13 years ago was when he was at the college at West Virginia. He was charged with underage drinking and fighting a police at Pittsburgh-Paris game in 2008. He was also arrested for domestic violence battery in 2009, and he allegedly grabbed a woman by her neck at a bar. Now, both those charges has been cleared, and he's been able to move on with his life. The messed up part about this is because of him being in the forefront of all this situation with him, Ime Udoka, and the Boston Celtics. Now his past issues are being brought to the forefront, which is totally not fair on his part, but unfortunately that's part of the game. So these days, as a sports athlete, as a politician, if you're trying to be in those type of positions, sometimes dirt might come up, and that's unfortunate because of all the nonsense that's been going on with the Boston Celtics and the Ime Udoka situation. Now his past issues are being brought to the forefront, and now he has to answer unnecessary questions about that, even though he handled those situations long time ago as regards to his past transgressions as regards to that. So I just feel like that was unnecessary, it was unprofessional, and it was not fair on ESPN and Malika's Andrew to even bring that up in that situation. So now he's going to be on podiums, talking to the media, answering these type of questions, and now he has to situate this in terms of being a low-key politician, so that way people could see that he's a changed man and he's not going to be doing the crazy stuff that he's past done in 2008 and 2009 because of those situations that happened prior. But my main crux of this video was merely Malika Andrews, because I just see it as it's totally unprofessional and unnecessary for her to even bring up those charges, especially that he got those charges dropped as of now and he's moving forward with his life, just trying to get back on the right track. I understand if those issues were to have happened a year ago, 2 years ago, or 5 years ago, but those issues happened 13 years ago in 2008 and in 2009. So that's why I feel like that was unfair. Another thing that kind of irks me is that the story of Brett Favre and Robert Sawyer's, those stories has totally calmed down as of the midst of the Ime Udoka and Boston Celtics situation. I find that really kind of funny in a way. But I'm going to continue to make stories as regards to that where more information comes out, because people need to know what's going on as regards to what's going on, because I feel like that's not fair that Brett Favre, who's done an atrocity by stealing millions of dollars from the poorest state in the union, and then Robert Sawyer, who's done even worse things than Ime Udoka, but he's not getting as much media attention as they should be, because you already know, I'm not going to say it, but we already know why. So I digress as regards to that. But the main crux was Malika Andrews. Now, I don't know what's going on in terms of the sports media, in terms of how certain athletes being covered, but you could just feel a toxic energy in the air as regards to that. Now, me, I've been watching ESPN since I was a little boy. Now, I would say around 2010, 11, 12, you could just feel the toxic energy rise up in terms of how certain athletes, particularly so-called black athletes, are being covered and in a negative stereotype, and it's like they're trying to paint the face of them as regards to how they're being covered. We've seen this with the Ray Rice situation. We've seen this with the Tyree Hill situation. We've seen this with the Kobe situation, Mike Vick, and etc. But when their counterpart athletes are being covered, they get one little story and that's about it. The whole Chad Wheeler situation, they talked about it for a couple of days and then they moved past it, like whatever. But I guarantee you, if a black man would have done a fraction of what Chad Wheeler did, which low-key was almost alleged murder, then that thing would have made airways for months on end. I remember when they did the Ray Rice situation, they were talking about it for weeks on end. But people like ESPN, Malika Andrews, they're not going to cover that situation because it's not part of their agenda. It's not part of what they want to cover. They want to cover whatever the black man is doing. And that's what I felt like they done with the whole Ime Udoka situation and Joe Mazzulla situation. Now, you've seen on recent clips her back and forth with certain athletes in sports media, with Stephen A. Smith, Matt Barnes, Kendrick Perkins, and etc. She's disrespectful. She's undermining. She has a negative tone, and you could just see the hatred in her eyes that she have when people disagree with her. She cuts people off. She silences them if they don't agree with her opinion. You see how she silenced Kendrick Perkins when they disagree with her. You seen the angry look on her face when Matt Barnes had a disagreement with her, and then she tried to check Stephen A. Smith on his own show. She tried to son him. She tried to little boy him on his own show, and Stephen A. Smith wasn't having none of that. So he checked it at the door and let her know, yo, this is not happening. And I respect her for that, because we already know Stephen A. Smith has got his nuts cut off a couple of times, and for him to show some backbone, I commend him for that. You gotta give credit where credit's due. But my thing is, this is just straight up toxic femininity on her part and how she wants to cover things, because she openly brought up his charges that were dropped 13 years ago, but she's a hypocrite because she's the main one talking about the identity of the female that Ime Udoka had quote unquote alleged sexual relations with needs to be kept a secret. But you openly brought out charges against Joe Mazzulla for whatever reason, we don't know. But I just wanted to speak the hypocrisy on that because I just felt like that was unfair. But again, that's just the toxic energy, the toxic feminine energy that she's been bringing out in terms of how she's covering certain athletes. And I wanted to bring that in the front for no, you're not going to get no type of realer back and forth in terms of her, because she's all in her feelings. And if it makes her feel bad, she's going to silence you. She's going to cut you off. She's going to do whatever you do to not give your opinions off. And I feel like that's not fair. So, and that's a toxic work environment where you feel like you can't express how you feel or what you think on your opinion. Even if people might not look at it, at least you could give them a perspective to maybe they might understand it. But they don't want that. They want that toxic liberal ideology all over ESPN, plastered all over ESPN. They don't want no differing opinions at all. And I feel like she's a hypocrite on that, and I don't take her seriously at all. To be honest, she's just another talking head on ESPN that's giving her quote-unquote feelings and opinions on sports. She doesn't give no facts. She never played the game. I doubt she even understands the game. I don't care if how this comes out. I don't care how anybody feels about it. I'm giving my personal opinion about it because this is unfair. This is BS. Straight up. She's talking to grown men like they're children, and they can't even like check her about it because it's gonna create a toxic environment throughout the workplace. And how she feels, she could go to HR, she could do a whole bunch of other BS that could possibly affect their jobs. So they have to low-key check it, like they have to low-key take it to some degree, except for Stephen A, because we already know Stephen A is ESPN. He's the biggest star in ESPN. Without him, that thing dies. So there's levels to what nonsense she could try to do and get away with, but she knows her place to some degree. But that's just my opinion. I just feel like she's emitting a lot of toxic feminist rhetoric on her show in terms of how sports athletes are being covered. But when it comes to women, she wants to protect their identity. She wants to do this. She wants to do that. And I feel like it's not fair. I just want some consistency. If you're going to cover certain athletes this way, you need to do it for the other athletes as well, whether it's other races or other gender females as well. But in terms of that, when it's strictly a male athlete, a black male athlete at that, boy, she goes all out. She goes all out. But anything else, she'll talk about it a little bit. Probably not even going to give her opinion about it, and then move forward. And that's the BS that we're talking about. Ime Udoka, I feel like he's going to make it out this situation decent. I know that he's suspended. If they were to have fired him and it was a consensual relations with the staff member, he could possibly sue, because if she consented to this relationship, she should be fired as well. I don't care what nobody say. She should be fired as well, and her identity should be put out on the forefront, just like Ime Udoka, if it was consensual, which I think it is, in my personal opinion. But I just feel like this whole situation has been a crapshoot, and it's not going to get resolved anytime soon. But the way it's being covered throughout all sports media, and how certain other stories are being suppressed and just not talked about, is BS, in my opinion. And this whole Joe Mazzulla situation is no better. It's just adding more fuel to the fire and not making the situation any better. And when you have toxic females like Malika Andrews that's emitting stories like this out loud, bringing up people's past issues, is not making the situation any better as well. But that's just my opinion on the matter. That's what I wanted to talk about in terms of how things are being covered. I'm going to continue to make more stories about this, because I just feel like it's not fair in my part. I just want some consistency and fairness. But again, those are my thoughts and opinions. And let me know yours in the comment section down below. Make sure you like, comment, subscribe. This is ESPN Speaks out.